Conan Exiles has spent 15 months in early access, shifting from a title which had a fairly negative player sentiment when it originally released, into a game which truly deserves to be noticed. Multiple members of our team have been playing the game a ton on Xbox One since launch, but it feels like we've barely scratched the surface. Exiles is a big game. We're not comfortable sticking our final score on the game just yet, but until then, here's why you should be paying attention to Conan Exiles. Since the game launched version 1.0 on PC, Xbox One and PS4, recently the player numbers have skyrocketed, and rightly so. The game is now regularly sat in the top 10 games on Steam. Leading up to the game's launch, developers Funcom introduced a bunch of major changes to the game, including new weapons, armor sets, dungeons, 2 entirely new regions, a fast travel system, and a completely overhauled combat system. Conan Exiles follows the survival mode fairly closely. If you played Ark or Rust, you'll kinda know what to expect. Whilst the genre appears to be somewhat of a downturn right now, Exiles offers a brilliant take on the genre, a culmination of the best elements from similar titles, blended with some brilliant mechanics seen from the past few years, leads to a seriously fun survival experience. Almost everything you see in the game can be gathered. There's no markers here highlighting interactive objects, only the player's experimentation. You know the drill by now. Grab branches, harvest bushes, mine for ore, slay animals, and of course, bash trees. Almost everything in the world produces resources. Crafting is an essential part of the game, and Funcom haven't skipped out here. Whether it's building a basic house from stone foundations to cultivating plants, catching fish, and breaking NPCs mentally, forcing them to follow your every command. Even sacrificing human hearts to the gods in order to summon a giant controllable avatar and rain down destruction on your enemies. The options here are incredibly extensive. Combat feels good too. It's a little Dark Souls-esque. You can kind of chain together light and heavy attacks to form different combos depending on your weapon type. There's various types of one-handed and two-handed weapons, along with bows, spears, shields and more. Against the NPCs the combat works great. It's often satisfying, particularly in PvE. Unfortunately right now the servers can get pretty laggy, making the PvP combat often frustrating. Rolling out of the way and expending a chunk of stamina in the process only to teleport back to your original position and get bonked by an enemy is not fun at all. One of Exiles' strong points is exploration. The game takes some obvious cues from Breath of the Wild. Everything can be climbed, including not only your own buildings but mountains too. Much like Breath of the Wild, your stamina drains as you climb. It's also possible to place custom markers on the map. Whilst you can see the full map straight away, you have to discover the points of interest for yourself, spread across the game's world. Wandering the game's vast world is exciting. There's caves and dungeons scattered throughout, cities to be found, large intimidating enemies to slay, new resources to discover, along with a range of biomes from forests to snow-covered mountains and barren deserts. Conan Exiles is absolutely at its best when played with others. Whilst you can set up a single-player game and explore the world on your own, nobody would recommend that. Creating a clan and building up your group's base camp, dividing resources between you and working towards shared goals is where it's at. When our base was raided the night before, we spent the next day exchanging messages back and forth, planning the move of our base deeper into the game's world. A member of our team would scout out a new spot and start working on the base before the rest of us could join them for our next session. It's been a long time since a game has overtaken our conversations outside of the game like this. Exiles does feel like an MMO light. It gives off some genuine old school MMO vibes. Unfortunately though, the max player count on official servers is still stuck at 40. This leads to a frustrating issue. During busier periods, often your server can be full, preventing you from playing the game. There's no queue system implemented yet either, meaning you're forced to sit refreshing the server browser retrying for a slot to open up. Not being able to play with your character with just tens, sometimes hundreds of hours spent on it isn't really a great situation. What makes the issue even more apparent though are the game's crashes. On Xbox One where we tested the game, all of our group encountered serious crashing issues, frustratingly regularly. Spending 20 minutes trying to join a previously full server and then crash out later and lose your slot is incredibly frustrating. Whilst Funcom have been patching the game and performing regular server maintenances, these crashing issues don't feel as though they've improved at all yet. Sometimes the game will crash constantly, other times it'll go hours without an issue. Crashing mid PvP can lead to some serious rage. Performance is a little bit ropey on Xbox One too. We've been testing the game across multiple Xbox One X consoles and with the original Xbox One. Whilst the game does look sharper on the X, frame rates are still an issue. The game regularly tanks, particularly around player built structures. When our base was raided with fire effects popping off and multiple players in the area, the frame rates was bordering on unplayable at times. That said, most of the time out in the open world, things are okay. There's definitely room for improvement here. Despite leaving early access, the game is still buggy. Thankfully, outside of these previously mentioned issues, most of the bugs are more amusing than frustrating, such as a whole bunch of animation related glitches. That said, there are some irritating ones, such as the target lock often prioritising clanmates over enemies. Over the past couple of weeks, multiple members of our team have been having a great time with the game. This is a title which isn't receiving the attention it deserves. A vast and interesting open world combined with a deep extensive crafting system, some interesting mechanics and a fairly solid combat system. Despite the niggles, Conan Exiles is a fantastic survival game, arguably one of the genre's best. If Funcom can continue to work out the kinks, improve server reliability and enhance the console performance, Exiles will be a pretty incredible experience. Right now though, it's a fairly rough gem that deserves a whole lot more attention than it's getting.